So hey everyone, today I want to take a look at Dying Light 1 and its dead zones. So by default, the camera dead zone is a 15% circular dead zone. This is a nice perfect circle, so um, on top of having a perfectly circular shape, there is no restricted diagonal movement, so very subtle angles will be conveyed. It's a little difficult to tell horizontally like this, but you can see this when capping the view, that passing right over this axis line will um, move the cursor, in this case horizontally, but diagonally in general. So this is a nice perfect circle dead zone, exactly what you want for the camera. For the movement though, we have about a 23% rounded square dead zone. Now, they might have chosen to do this because the actual portion of the dead zone restricts diagonal movement. So if you move your stick anywhere within this blue region, in this case you'll be moving perfectly forward, perfectly back, perfectly left, and perfectly right. And this makes it a little easier to move perfectly forward, which could be useful when you're on thin patches like this, and keeping being able to move perfectly forward, and then you just direct yourself with the camera. Of course, this wouldn't really be necessary because if you had, uh, no axial dead zone and had full diagonal movement, you could just adjust your um, movement to move yourself in the proper direction. But movement isn't it's not necessary for movement to be as precise as the camera, so this isn't really an issue. The shaded region right here represents the sprint threshold, so if you try sprinting when your stick is beneath this, nothing will happen. But if you're past this threshold, you'll begin sprinting. There's a threshold beneath it in the same shape, just larger. And when you're sprinting, you have to move your stick under this threshold to be able to stop sprinting. And you can see that if I move the stick over here, I can't start sprint, but I can start sprinting once I'm in the shaded region, and then pull back so you can make a little wider arcing sprint, and if you go too far, you'll stop sprinting. The threshold for this is radial, but because it's built after the axial dead zone, you can see that it's straight right here, so it's warped a bit into a rounded square shape. But you'll see these thresholds over here. This is a perfect circle, and what this represents is the dodge threshold. So normally if you press the jump button, you jump, and if you press the jump button in any other direction, you'll still jump. But if you move far enough, you'll dodge in that direction. So you can dodge right or left, and then down, and this threshold just chooses in between them. So it's just a little interesting that this is a perfect circle, and this the sprint threshold is warped a bit by the axial dead zone, but that's really not noticeable at all during gameplay. This game does have dead zone options, so to show the maximum dead zone, I'll set it there and change the overlay. The maximum dead zone is 30%, and this changes exactly like you'd expect it to. It's still a perfect circle, just at 30%. Looking at the minimum dead zone you can select is 0%. And you can see here, now any stick movement, aside from perfectly centered, will give you camera movement. Now, dead zone options are great, and I think overall the camera controls in this and in Techland's other games are pretty excellent. The main real flaw, I think, with this is that the vertical sensitivity is quite a bit slower than the horizontal, And this is very common in games, and a lot of players prefer this, but this has a few issues. Um, One is that this game is very vertical, and uh, you have to look up and down a lot, so that can be kind of less than ideal. But another one is this changes your diagonal movement. So to try to demonstrate that, I'm going to use this right over here, and I'm going to try to use from this corner right here up through here. This isn't a perfect square, but it's good enough for a test. If I try moving at a perfect 45-degree angle, let me line this up first. Okay, my stick is not cooperating. And then move at a perfectly 45-degree angle, you can see that it falls significantly short of that. And you would expect it to, if you're moving at a 45-degree angle, meet closer to this corner. Now, it seems, just based on a crude test, that the ratio is, the vertical sensitivity is half the horizontal, and this is difficult to test in some games. Here it's a little more accurate. You can see how long it takes you to do, say, the 360-degree turn. I've done 2 rotations there, and how long it takes you to look up to down. One of the difficulties when doing this, though, is a lot of games you can't look perfectly upward, and here it's pretty noticeable you can't look perfectly downward. But it's pretty close to half. And as I mentioned here with this this test, and I'll do that again with the slower sensitivity too to really make that obvious, is that because the sensitivity is slower, the angle is changed quite a bit, and you can see that that was pretty far from this corner where I was aiming for. And this happens with any game that has differing axis sensitivities, just the way it's implemented. And I'll try to show on screen just how general movements might change with these different axis sensitivities. There's no option to set these separately. There's just a single stick sensitivity option. But that's something that hopefully might be changed in at some point during Dying Light 2's lifetime. Just to be able to address this, so players that are happy with the default can keep the default, but players who want correct diagonal movement and the same X and Y sensitivities can be able to set them. The last thing I want to talk about is the acceleration curve. So the acceleration curve in Dying Light is a perfect quadratic. So it starts slow and then builds up to its maximum turn rate at the end. And the outer dead zone is about 97%. So it caps off after that point. A quadratic curve is a perfectly fine acceleration curve. It's very common in games. Some players might prefer different curves, though. Some players might can prefer linear curves. Some players might want something even more precise. And for Dying Light 2, it might be good to offer a slider to control the intensity of the acceleration curve. So having a range from linear all the way to cubic would give players a huge amount of customization for that to fit their preference. But that about covers things. A lot of these improvements hopefully will come at some point during Dying Light 2's lifespan, some separate vertical sensitivity and maybe an acceleration curve customization. But there's been an incredible amount of support for Dying Light 1, so who knows, maybe this game can still get an update to see these things added. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and everyone, have a good rest of your day.